Stoddard. We hear about the Vermont National Guard when there's a deployment or new jets create controversy. But there's a lot we don't hear about: partnerships with foreign countries that deal with trade and democracy issues, programs for family and children, and opportunities for members of the Guard. Vermont Adjutant General Gregory Knight is joining me today to talk about elements of the National Guard less frequently in the news. Welcome, Major General Knight. It's great to have you here.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Yeah. So the Vermont National Guard is composed of the Army National Guard and, of course, the Air National Guard, affectionately known as the Green Mountain Boys all together. As I understand it, the National Guard is considered a strategic reserve. What does that mean, and how do individuals serve?
So the strategic reserve narrative actually changed after 9/11. Both our Army and Air National Guard across the nation were the primary combat reserve of the Army and the Air Force. So after 9/11, we became what many refer to as an operational reserve. So even that has started to change. I think the direction we're going now is calling it an integrated reserve. What that means for us as a Guard is parity of resources, parity of training, parity of funding, and everything that we do for our federal mission actually pays dividends for our domestic mission, response to our governor and our Vermonters, if you look at what we did throughout the pandemic. So it's a change in the narrative, I think. We are accessible. We are, to me, cost efficient in the big scheme of things. A lot of folks don't know, many of our Guard members, 2/3 of them, are actually part-time members. So that was the old adage of 1 weekend a month, 2 weeks a year.
Right.
Probably a little more than that now, but the majority of our force are part-timers, and they maintain their ready status just like everybody else does.
Great, and for the state of Vermont and for the nation.
That's correct.
So looking back, actually, over the decades, there were deployment times where it was sort of rare, and then it became much more frequent and a little more dangerous. What's the status around deployment now?
So we try very hard as a Guard to give predictability to our Guard members. So normally in the Army Guard, we're on a 5-year rotation. You build your readiness over that 5 years: individual training, collective training, and eventually deployment. So last year, our Army Guard was in 3 different combatant commands. They were in Europe, they were in Africa, they were in Southwest Asia, so Central Command. But at times, if you look at our Air Guard, just last year, at a very short notice deployment, and they were up and out and flying missions in less than 30 days in support of NATO and the air policing mission in Europe after the invasion of Ukraine. So those things are unpredictable. It's kind of driven by the mission. When the request comes, we have to be ready to go.
And then people go on maybe 1 or 2 deployments if they're in that part-time status.
Correct, and again, it depends on the nature of the unit that's being requested.
Sure.
You know, if they want military police, then we would mobilize that unit. If it's an infantry brigade combat team, then we would mobilize the brigade.
Great. You know, I'm so interested in the state partnership program. This sends Guard units to different places around the world to do very interesting work. So tell us about that program and how it's part of the U.S. security strategy.
So right now, the state partnership program has been in place for 30 years this year. We're going down in a couple of weeks, actually, for the 30th anniversary of the state partnership program. There are 88 partnerships with over 100 nations right now. It starts as military to military, so we have that in common, and we can talk a little bit about that. But if we do this right, we become the continuity, the foundational element of the partnership, and then it grows. It can grow into many different areas, as we're starting to see with our 3 state partners.
So we're seeing Senegal here, which is one of the partner states. So that's one of them. What kinds of activities and what countries are you in?
So we've been partnered with North Macedonia for 30 years. We hosted the Minister of Defense here. She's wonderful, very supportive, and their Chief of Defense 2 weeks ago did a signing ceremony at the State House with the governor, recommitting to our partnership. But it touches so many different things. So 30 years with North Macedonia, we had 15 years with Senegal, and 1 year coming up on 1 year with Austria.
Wow. So what kinds of things do you actually do with those countries? So it's Vermont, these states. Other states have other places that they have partnerships
That's correct.
with, right? So what would you do in Macedonia or in Senegal?
So we focus on interoperability. So that's the military to military piece, range development, non-commissioned officer development, human resources, growing their population of women in their military. So a lot of different things in the military lane, but again, if we do it right, we start bringing in different elements. So it was a few months ago, we had their the North Macedonian Auditor of Accounts came and met with his counterpart here in Vermont. Last month, we brought their Minister of Agriculture to meet with Secretary Tebbetts, our Secretary of Agriculture.
Right.
And again, that's our job. Has nothing to do with the military, but we are the continuity. We facilitate those relationships. So it can touch a lot of different things.
Terrific. And we even we sent troops to Austria, and there was a competition, and a lot of people drop out. They don't even make it. But you placed
Yes.
our guys from Vermont.
Yep, our folks are remarkable. We sent, I think there were 18 nations competing in the Edelweiss raid, and folks can look that up online. It's a very challenging competition, very challenging environment, cold weather, at elevation, and it's tough. But
Right.
to even finish is remarkable. To place well, also pretty amazing.
And our folks did, which
Yes, they
is
did.
awesome. Congratulations. So the U.S. Department of Defense has a woman peace and security strategy. So what's that about, and how does that involve your projects? Were there any women on this team actually?
Not
in that one.
Not this one.
Yeah, but there have been.
We're working to grow that.
Yeah.
But the women in peace and security, these are, to me, it focuses on the importance of having women in those strategic leadership roles, either militarily or civilly. Our role in that, we participated, my women senior leaders in Vermont have participated with the ambassadors and the ministers of defense at roundtables talking about that very thing, women in leadership positions. And I was at the Naval War College and participated in a lecture where the lecturer, I don't remember her name, but she presented her case, her thesis was in societies where women are not integrated into governance, into business, into leadership roles, those societies will eventually fail.
So that's powerful. And Vermont was the first state to integrate women into all Guard units just 2 years ago, including combat units. You were also determined at that time, you said, to change the culture of the Guard, to be more welcoming to women. How is that integration and culture change coming along?
Fran, since I've been in this role a little over 4 years, we now have more women in senior leadership positions than in the history of the National Guard here in Vermont.
Congratulations.
So, and what sometimes gets lost in the conversation, I can give you statistics about who's doing what and where. I've got 2 women as battalion commanders in our infantry brigade combat team. That's unprecedented. I've got 3.5 years ago, we had no women flying the F-35, and now we have 2. 50% of my first sergeants at the fighter wing are women. And we did that by simply recognizing that our military, our Guard, is a meritocracy. And if you level the playing field, the best will rise to the challenge. So they're in those positions because they're the best qualified leaders to do the job, not just because they're women.
And they're feeling good about that. There was all that question really before you came in about, are things okay? Is for women? Are they welcome there? Are they getting harassed? And I take it you're dealing with that.
It's a human
very
endeavor,
well.
Fran. We're not there yet, but we're working on it.
Yeah.
It's when people feel comfortable with our processes, with the system, and we've rebuilt that trust, people will come forward and tell you when there's a problem because they know you're going to take action, and that's really what our focus has been. But when it comes to putting women in the Guard, and in a world where incremental change is remarkable, last year our Army National Guard grew the population of women by 4%.
Wow.
That's remarkable.
That is remarkable. So speaking of recruitment and retention, it's tough in all sectors actually these days, but you're also feeling it at the Guard. Still, you have lots of incentives and opportunities for recruits, so why don't you tell us a little bit about those?
So we probably have the best education entitlement across the National Guard, and we work with our legislature to get that done. So we will pay for a bachelor's, we'll pay for a second bachelor's, we will pay for an advanced degree, we will pay for up to 4 certificate producing programs a year. It comes with a service commitment. I mean, that's part of the game,
Sure.
but it's concurrent. So if you go to school for 4 years, you owe us 4 years. Your service during your 4 years of college actually counts. The true benefit for us is it applies not only to public institutions like Vermont State Colleges, but also to private institutions as well.
Terrific. And with these kinds of incentives, I hear that some high school counselors dismiss the Guard as a good option. What do you say to that?
That one, I struggle with that one, Fran. I find that type of narrative one, it's false. I think people need to get educated. There are so many opportunities for people to join our Guard and do great things for themselves, for their communities, their state, and their nation. Be a part of something larger than yourself.
And possibly see the world.
And absolutely
As
can
they
get
say.
to see the world. But when I hear somebody say that, why would you throw your life away? I'll bet you should come see us. Come talk to us and learn about what the Guard is and what the Guard does, and inform your perspective before you start misinforming people.
Got it. The Vermont National Guard doesn't have a base here, so families live scattered around throughout our communities. How do you assure that families feel supported, especially during deployment times?
So we have a really strong family programs directorate, and specifically for deployments, we will do yellow ribbon programs where we will meet with families and soldiers and airmen that are deploying, give them their options, give them the resources, explain how to get them. We're a phone call away, literally. We will do that mid-deployment, and then we will do that again when people come home. We've got youth and child services. We have veteran outreach, so we take care of our veterans when they come back. So it's pretty significant. It's a great network, and we also have our partners outside the Guard that work with us to make sure those families have what they need when they need it.
We often talk to 4-H about military kids, and it's always a great story. I want to make sure that people know how to get in touch with you for information about the Guard, the Vermont National Guard. You can visit their website at vtguard.com, or you can call 1-800-489-2764. We're speaking right now with Major General Gregory Knight. He is the Adjutant General of Vermont. And just, we have 30 seconds. You helped during COVID. You did amazing things with the Guard right here in Vermont. Other things that you do here for Vermonters?
So we have a civil support team, and we'll bring our state partners here. These are the folks that would respond to hazardous materials, chemical, biological, radiological hazards. They're here 24/7, and we work within our communities. We're increasing our outreach to new Americans, those lawful permanent residents, and underrepresented populations in our Guard, to show them the opportunities that they have to serve.
Great. General Knight, congratulations on 40 years of service
July
with the
11th.
Guard. It's wonderful. Thank you for joining us on Across the
Thanks,
Fence.
Fran.
And thank you for joining us today. I'm Fran Stoddard. Stay well.